Hello, everyone who is coming in. Welcome to those who are already here. We'll be starting in about 3 minutes. So I'm just going to put the slide up for the scanning code. So just wait one moment while I get that organized for you. Let's have a look. Right. Whoops. Sorry, wrong one. There we go. So scan in as you come in. And you'll also need a piece of paper tonight and something to write with. So if you don't already have that, if you could get those things, and we will be starting very shortly. We just wait for more people to arrive. Um, so yeah, scan in. The other thing you need to do is just make sure that your video well, you can have your video going if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. But what you do need to do is mute your computer, please, so that we don't get a whole lot of interruptions. So, yeah, scan in, grab yourself a piece of paper and something to write with, and we'll get started in a few minutes. Wonderful to see so many of you joining in person. It's great. For those of you who are watching this or watching the recording, also welcome. I know some of you are going to be watching this together during a staff meeting, which is a great idea. Then you can collaborate together and chat amongst yourselves. But yeah, welcome to everyone. Still got 1 more minute to go before we start. Before I start on the presentation, though, I would like to just say how it's been great traveling around the country meeting you all. I've had a very successful term last term. I think all up it was, I think, 270 teachers I've ended up training, so really, really enjoyed that. And yeah, just really going around New Zealand and having a good look around too. I'm a real adventurer by heart. So for me, it's been a real thrill going around the country and uh, also going around the country and having a little look around all the wonderful sights New Zealand has to offer. So it's been absolutely wonderful seeing you all. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started. So if you haven't had the chance to scan in this evening, I will be sending this recording out to you. So you'll be able to scan in just at the beginning, right at the beginning of the presentation. So, tonight we are going to be looking at handwriting. And I know while I was there with you in person, I promised that, we'd dive into handwriting as one of our communities of practice. So, which is exactly what we're going to be doing tonight. So, we're going to start off with a little activity. And I know that there might be a couple of you that I have done this with before, but yeah, you have a go, have another go if you've already done this with me. But if you haven't, give this a go. What I'm going to get you to do on your piece of paper that you've grabbed is we're going to just for 1 minute, I'll set a little timer. I want you to just write a little paragraph or just write for the complete 1 minute. And I would like you to entitle the bit that you're going to be writing during the holidays I. So I want you to, nobody's going to read this. It's more of a handwriting exercise, but it is, yeah, I'll talk a little bit more in a minute why we're doing this, but yeah, for 1 minute, we're just going to write as much as you can, all the things you did in the last holidays. Okay, ready? Here we go. Go. And stop. There's the alarm. So I want you to stop there. Now, what I'd like you to do is draw a line under what you have written. And we're going to do the exercise again, but I'm going to pick a different topic. This time, I would like the topic to be I enjoy being a teacher because. So you're going to write a little bit again for 1 minute. But here's the trick. What I want you to do is to swap hands. So if you're a right-hander, I want you to write with your left hand. And if you are normally a left-hander, I want you to write with your right hand. So get ready. The topic is I enjoy being a teacher because, ready, go. 5 seconds of misery left and stop. All right. What I want you to do is to hop on the chat and tell me how you found that second experience compared to the first one. So let's have some people put some things into the chat. Um, what do you think? Yes. Yeah, exactly, Michael. Misery, isn't it? Absolutely. Jenny, your brain definitely had to concentrate on letter formation. Absolutely. Very tough going. Yep, Donna, very much you feel that frustration, far less creative. Wonderful. Yeah, Faith wrote half as much. Sonia's written, my hand was uncomfortable and it's sore. Absolutely. Really, really hard. Yep. Very slow and untidy. Yes. Yeah, all of these things, isn't it? It's when we are having to really concentrate on the handwriting, other things suffer, don't they? That frustration grows, that sense of, oh, I just can't get my ideas out onto the paper. Um, for some of you, yeah, your hand got very sore. And so I do this exercise to really show why it is important that we get handwriting to automaticity because of all the reasons that you're experiencing. Normally, it's a little bit hard over Zoom, but normally when I do this in a classroom of teachers, I usually find with the first minute when they're writing with their normal hand, um, it's absolutely quiet in the room. But if I do it the second time round, that second minute when we swap hands, there's usually a bit of giggling going on. There are actually people who just give up. There's a lot more chatter. And I think that is a really good example of what it can be like in a classroom. If you have to really concentrate on what you're doing, frustration increases, of course, and yeah, it leads to those sort of disruptive behaviors as well. So, I want you to remember this activity because, and what it felt like as an adult when we can't get our ideas down on paper very easily, because that is what our new learners are experiencing as they are learning how to write. And certainly, children who are further down the primary system, if they haven't got that automaticity in their handwriting, it starts to affect everything. Handwriting is not just about making our handwriting look pretty on the page. There are real mechanics behind it, and it really feeds into that cognitive load theory as well. So let's have a little look at all of that. Now, why is my there we go. Okay, so just as a little reminder about cognitive load theory, remember how when I was with you in person, we really looked at that working memory and how that can easily become overloaded quickly, and that affects the learning because if cognitive load is happening on that working memory, a lot of the learning gets forgotten. Frustration sets in, and we start to talk. We start to see some of those behaviours that are not desirable within the classroom. So, remember sensory memory, we've got that all that input coming in. This is just a reminder of the PD that you did, that working memory. We can hold about 7 items for 5 to 20 seconds before it gets forgotten. And that's really the part that we're looking at tonight around that, particularly that 7 items. If when we're writing, part of our working memory is being used up for handwriting, we have a lot less working memory available for the actual writing process itself. And of course, we want that working memory to be working really well so that we can, encode out the information and the learning into the long-term memory, of course. That being the major goal, isn't it? So this diagram here really looks at that working memory and some of the different loads that we can put on that working memory. So we are really, it's looking to simplify, reduce, and maximize different types of load. And certainly when we are writing, we are adding a lot of load to the memory. So we're wanting to reduce that cognitive load. And really, the handwriting comes in into the intrinsic cognitive load part. So we've got there that it's the complexity of the task, and we're trying to simplify. So if the handwriting is automatic, then the task of actually writing is simplified. Right, so certainly with the planning of the writing, we've got a lot going on with that cognitive load there. We've got a lot of planning of the writing that we want to do. And then the transcription skills also feeds into that extraneous cognitive load. Transcription skills as in the handwriting, if we are really focusing on that, it, like it says there, it distracts working memory from processing new information. So it distracts us from actually getting our ideas down. And there the ideas falls into the germane cognitive load. I'm just going to minimize this here so we can see it. Wonderful. So yes, the ideas part of cognitive load feeds into that germane cognitive load. So, really, planning, we're wanting to simplify, we're wanting to reduce the amount of load on the transcription skills so that we've got maximum cognitive load for our ideas when we are writing. So, why is cognitive load theory important and what do we need to focus on first? Well, first of all, before we can get into writing, our handwriting needs to develop. So that is why in the junior classes, particularly, we are very, very focused on handwriting and getting that letter formation to automaticity. Uh, what else do we need to focus on when we are learning how to write is how to encode. So that is using those phoneme fingers to make sure that we are looking at the different phonemes so that we can write those down. And both of these processes need to be automatic. And to get to automaticity, of course, we have to do a whole lot of practice to get those automatic. And of course, to get good writing, our oral language needs to be worked on. So, like I said to you at the PD, that explicit vocab teaching is really, really important. All of these things, if they are automatic, they're going to reduce that cognitive load for our writers. And it's particularly in the junior end, we are looking at that simple punctuation and do the children know how to use that punctuation? We need to get all of those things to automaticity. So, why teach handwriting explicitly? Well, I have two bits of research here, and there is so much research out there on handwriting, but these two I really, really want to point out. So, Dinehart in 2014 suggested that when children write letters, they demonstrate better letter recognition skills, which means they learn to read quicker. Now, that's a really, really interesting bit of research because what it's talking about there is that handwriting, and particularly when children are learning to write letters and form those letters, it has a real link to learning how to read. Now, I've read a little bit about this, and they're not exactly quite sure how those links are made in the brain. That is further research that has been done, but it has been demonstrated that when we really focus in on the formation of letters, that it has links to learning how to read. And then James and Berninger in 2019, this is another bit of research. Research suggests that the process of forming letters while handwriting activates neural pathways that are associated with strong reading skills. So this study was replicated a couple of years later. In fact, handwriting plays a crucial role in the formation of these brain networks which underlie the development of strong reading skills. These brain connections are only made when children are engaged in handwriting activities, and this is the crucial bit, not when tracing or typing letters. So any sort of handwriting activities that we are doing with children are better when the formation is retrieved and that children are actually actively engaged in handwriting those letters. Tracing activities don't have that same bang for buck effect. And certainly typing letters certainly does not either. So we definitely want children handwriting. Over the next few slides, I'm not going to go over this so much, but I'm going to leave this in the notes because I'll send out the PDF form of this presentation as well to you. But there are a whole lot of points that tell us why handwriting is really important. So I'll let you have a little look at that later on. Um, a lot of what it's saying is that, again, handwriting is what's important. It's not the tracing or the typing. Um, and there are some benefits of handwriting as well. Again, you'll have these all in your notes. It has benefits not just for reading, but it also has lots and lots of other benefits as well in many different areas of a child's development. So you'll be able to have a look at those while you are looking over the PDF later on. So again, there's a whole lot there. And for those of you who are really interested in delving into some research, there is some links there for you, and you can really delve into those. In particular, have a look at the third one down, the effects of cursive handwriting on literacy in children. We're going to talk a little bit about cursive handwriting tonight. And if you're really interested in why we do cursive handwriting, that would be a really good study to have a little look at. Okay, so what all of those are saying, of course, is beware of keyboarding too early. Um, Nothing beats handwriting instruction. And in fact, it's not just it's nice to, it's nice to do handwriting. Have a look at the research that McKinsey in 2019 discovered. Replacing handwriting instruction with keyboarding skills in the primary school years can actually be detrimental to students' developing of literacy skills. Switching to keyboarding before students have developed handwriting skills may reduce their ability to recognise letters. And of course, that has impacts. It impacts their letter writing fluency and overall reading development. So you will notice in the new curriculum that there is a section on keyboarding. Would anybody like to put into the chat when we would actually start keyboarding with students? So that's, when have children typically develop their handwriting skills? Anybody got any ideas when it might be? Pop it into the chat if you know what year in the curriculum we are leaving the keyboarding to. Absolutely. Yep. It's around that year six mark. Yep. Well done, Lindy and Emily. Yep. Year five, six, year six, around there. Yeah, absolutely. So, we want to try and avoid using screens and the keyboard too early for instruction. And yeah, like I said, nothing replaces a good handwriting instruction. Oops, where's that going? There we go. Okay. Another little bit of research for you. When children learn to write by hand, they not only learn to read more quickly, but they're better able to generate ideas and retain information. This research found when children wrote text by hand, they produced more words more quickly than on the keyboard. And this is the key bit, but they also expressed more ideas. So the benefits of explicit handwriting instruction, particularly right up to year six, can be very beneficial. Well, not can be, it is beneficial for children. So we want to try and make sure that we've got some good handwriting instruction going on, at least up to year six. So, some other things that link into handwriting is I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's actually a real auditory link when we write. So, when we form letters, when we first learnt how to write letters, there is a real auditory link between the formation of the letter and how we remember that sound in our brain. So, usually I do this with a group of teachers, and I have a big clipboard with a piece of paper on it and a pencil, and I usually write a couple of letters and get the teachers to guess what those letters are. And I'd say 95% of the time, the teacher can actually guess what letter I'm forming. And it's quite interesting how the brain remembers the sound of some letters. Perhaps after this Zoom meeting, you might want to try it on some of your family members. But the trick is you need to have a writing implement that makes some sort of noise. And the only way it will make noise is if it has a bit of friction. So, pencil is the most ideal thing. The other thing that really makes a good auditory link, of course, is chalk on a chalkboard. And not that I'm suggesting we go back to slate, but you can certainly see how many, many years ago, when children were using slate to do their handwriting lessons, actually it was based in science. But yeah, what we really recommend is that for the first sort of 3 years of a child's primary schooling, that they do use pencil with paper, which means, of course, that we are very fond of our whiteboards and we are very fond of our whiteboard tables. And I'm not saying don't use those, but as much as we can get children using pencil with paper, that is the best form of instruction that we can give them, because then we're really giving that multi-sensory input, and that really links into that cognitive load theory, doesn't it? Where we're inputting sensory information into our sensory memory. And the more we are hitting different types of senses, then that will help with that formation. So, also using tactile mediums like finger drawing in sand, etc., for younger children is all wonderful stuff. Right, so how do you teach formation? Well, I'm initially going to talk particularly to the junior teachers, because that's, of course, where formation gets started. And some of you have heard me talk about skywriting before. And skywriting is a way that I teach formation to children. And it is really about developing muscle memory. Because if you put your fingers just on this muscle, just up here on your writing hand, and then write in the air, just write a little M for me. You won't feel anything on your muscle there. But now I want you to put your arm right out and then do a giant big M in the sky. Can you feel that muscle bobbing up and down? That has a real link, of course, into the letterbox forming area at the back of the brain. And so you're getting that sensory input into the brain there with that and building up that muscle memory. So when we are skywriting, we want to use 2 fingers. Because 1 finger, of course, indicates that we are pointing, but 2 fingers is really great for skywriting. The other thing is, as you're modeling as a teacher, you want to try and keep the 2 fingers, it's a wider surface area so the children can really see your fingers. The other thing, of course, we want to do to activate that muscle up here in our neck, we're wanting nice big movements. So the children, nice huge big movements, and those movements are across the body, activating that left and right hemisphere. We want to do our skywriting on the vertical plane, so in other words, out in front of us, and forming that up in the sky. That's, well, it's not really the sky, but it's certainly right in front of us. And then we take it down to the horizontal plane. By that I mean we're going to write the letter I up in the sky, like so, and now we take it down to the floor and write it on the floor, or we write one on our knee. And by activating that horizontal plane as well, we are allowing our fingers to drag on that friction, whether it's on our knee or on the carpet, and it's just giving that extra sensory information there. So like I've put there, add the excuse me, add the tactile in there. Draw it on your friend's back, all those sort of things. These are kind of the things that we used to do, right? And so we still want to keep those things in there because it is based on science. So that's really good. And then we want to link the phoneme to the grapheme. So the way I do this when I'm teaching young children is that I will say, okay, we're going to do the letter B, for instance, um, and I want to just keep my instructions nice and minimal. So I would say to the child, or to the class rather, right, start at the top, down, up, around. Let's do it again. Top, down, up, around. One more time. Top, down, up, around. And then I reduce all that scripting because now we've done it 3 times. We've been practicing with our muscles, and now we do it without talking. So, and again, and one more time. And so we're building up that muscle memory. Now I want to attach the phoneme to that formation. So as we are writing our B in the sky, we're going to say the sound B. So we go B, B. And that is how I create the formation of the letter, but also attach the sound to it. Because one thing that has really concerned me, and at the moment it's a real gut feeling, but I'm concerned that a lot of our handwriting instruction is adding a whole lot of stuff to it. For instance, right, kids, put your fingers up in the sky and we're going to go down all the way down to the bottom of the line. That's it. Now go up halfway. Yep, stop there and around we go. And you can see what I'm doing, can't I? I'm doing a lot of that chatting again, and we really want to keep instruction down low so that the children can concentrate on what's being said, and that we are keeping those the amount of cognitive load on the working memory that's kept down low. The other thing that's concerning me a little bit is that we're using programs that assign things to letters that I don't necessarily want the child to remember. For instance, the letter M is formed by a stick and a tunnel and a tunnel. Um, Personally, I think it's better that instead of remembering stick, tunnel, tunnel, and that it's associated with a character, is that I want children to remember the sound that that formation makes. Mm, that's what I want them to remember. So I've really, over the years, sort of refined the way that I teach handwriting, and based on what I know to be true with cognitive load theory, and also about what I notice, particularly with teaching intervention students. And that's really the space I come from is, well, if this is allowing our intervention students to get confused and to remember incorrect information or remember information that isn't part of the formation, then surely that's also happening with the rest of the class. So that's my little hill to die on. I think it's far better to link the phoneme to the grapheme. Okay, so what is the aim of explicit handwriting instruction? Well, it's not about looking pretty. It doesn't matter what the handwriting looks like, although it does need to be, of course, legible. But really, the ultimate aim of handwriting instruction in schools is for the students to achieve legibility so that other people can read it. But another big part of it, of course, is the speed. Because if we are taking a long time to write, we're less likely to write. Our hands get tired, as you discovered when you were doing the opposite hand. And also, it's just like with reading. If I'm reading too slowly, I lose the impact of the story and comprehension's not there. Likewise with writing, if my writing is too slow, I lose what I wanted to communicate. So that aspect of speed is actually really, really important. And we should, part of our instruction, particularly in the older classes, is doing some speed work with our students so that we are getting to automaticity. That's the whole goal. So, two things to keep in mind: it has to be legible, but also we need to increase some speed there. And really, to achieve all of that, it lies in the concept of consistency. Now, I know that when I was with you in person, you would have heard me talk about consistency and how important it is that what's happening in the new entrant room is happening in the year 4 room, it's happening in the year 8 room. And really, it's the whole school needs to be working together. And you're basically passing the baton on to each teacher. So there needs to be some consistency in what the school does. So here we go. I'll just read this out. The importance lies in the consistency of the approach a school uses towards handwriting. It is essential that from one year to the next, each teacher adopts a similar style of handwriting instruction to allow for maximum retention by the students and effective incremental learning. So whatever instructions you're giving in the junior room goes right through the whole school. In other words, the way you form letters, are the teachers all doing the same? Now, I'll tell you a little story, and I'm certainly not going to even tell you what school it is. It is not at the last school that I taught at, so it's none of those teachers, but I did once walk past a class, and the teacher was teaching how to write the letter D. And it just made me stop because I just happened to be walking past and I saw that the teacher was saying, right, now to form the letter D, you start at the top and you go down, do the stick first, just like the B, and then around we go. And I would never have thought that teachers could have a different style of writing and just a different way of forming. And had I not seen how she was doing the formation of that letter, I would never have known that that's the way the formation was happening. Because once the letter's formed, of course, you don't see that. It just looked like a D. But if she's teaching it that way, and then, excuse me, the next year's teacher teaches it, circle first, then up, then down, then, you can see where the confusion lies for the children. So we need to make sure that all teachers have got the same consistent approach. And certainly this is something that when I was working at Central Normal, we adopted a school-wide, um, almost a bit like, well, not quite a scope and sequence, but certainly a handwriting guide, where we had how each letter was to be formed and the way we would, uh, um, instruct the children on that letter. So, for instance, there was that minimal scripting underneath each one. And so every class adopts the same approach. And I can't stress that enough that you need to have consistency throughout the school. Also, here's some more consistent things that you need to think about. There needs to be daily lessons. It's a bit like riding a bike, isn't it? If you go hard out all day for one day a year, you are not going to get great at riding your bike. But if you were to do just 2 minutes every single day, then of course you get better at riding a bike. It's the same with handwriting. We need to be building up those muscles, that fine motor skills, and we can only do that through daily lessons. So that is also being part of the consistency. I've talked a little bit about school consistency. Yep, very important. And it also needs to be cumulative and explicit instruction. So what do I mean by that? Well, cumulative is that we start with certain letter shapes and we build on those shapes. And explicit as in the teacher modeling and guiding the handwriting lesson. A handwriting lesson is not one where we put the handwriting up on the board and use it as a reading task, where the children just copy off the board and that's their handwriting for the day. It actually needs to be modelled by the teacher, but more importantly, it needs to be monitored by the teacher so that you are actively engaged with the handwriting, and looking at things that need to be corrected as well. And there we are, there's that point. It's important to be consistently monitoring the children's work, and giving immediate feedback. So when we see an incorrect formation, that we give that feedback, model how it's to be done, and that the child has the opportunity to have another go. And that's a little bit hard to do, isn't it, when you're bringing in the handwriting books at the end of the day and you see a whole page of incorrect formation. It's a bit late then. So it really needs to be done and modelled as a handwriting lesson. So some guidelines to consider. Have the same consistent script for the whole school so that you're all on the same page. Reduce the script to its bare minimum. So, for instance, like the A, around, down would be an example of reducing the script down. Embed skywriting into your handwriting instruction. Children use pencils and books with appropriate line size. So I know at Central Normal we have the fatter lines for the junior team. Then the middle team, they had slightly smaller lines, and then the senior years, they had, I think it's the 1B8, the little smaller lines there. The other thing to very much be aware of is that posture is a huge part of handwriting. So wherever possible, that children sit at tables for any sort of writing. Normally when I do this sort of instruction face to face with you, I usually hop down on the floor and I invite everyone down on the floor, which can get a little uncomfortable. But and then I get people to write. And what you'll notice is if you're lying on the floor, as you see a lot of kids doing on the mat, etc., and then try and write, you'll find that your elbow is actually anchored to the floor. And all the pressure gets put onto this joint in into the wrist for the writing. Whereas writing tends to be a whole arm approach. Even if you just grab on your bit of paper, just write one word, and you'll notice how your elbow moves as you write. So if you're lying on the floor and trying to do some writing, and your elbow is actually anchored to the floor because you're on your elbows to do the writing, you don't get great writing. And in fact, you put a lot of pressure on your wrist joint. Likewise, you can't do great writing if you're sitting cross-legged on the floor, or leaning on a table or leaning on a chair. Um, Anytime the kids are doing writing, get them sitting up at tables, 2 feet flat on the floor, good posture, and yeah, it's essential. I tell you what I did a couple of years ago. I had around my teaching station, I had those little stools, and I found that children, they'd be rocking or moving side to side, and their feet often wouldn't be flat on the floor. One would be on that bar that sits on those little stools. So I got rid of them and I got some good chairs with good posture. And I found that the handwriting really improved with that. So, yeah, something to consider anyway. I know that classroom budgets and school budgets sometimes don't allow for that. But if you're looking at purchasing furniture for in the future, consider getting ones that promote good posture for good writing. The other thing to consider is using a cursive script from year 3 to 4 onwards. Um, Cursive script is the script that is the most efficient for writing. And in fact, if you look at your first sample of writing that you did, I wonder how many of you actually wrote in a sort of linked way. Because it's efficient. You're getting your ideas down and you get quite a bit of speed when you're writing cursive. And that is because you're not lifting your pencil off the paper. Whereas I bet you none of you used a cursive script with your second sample of writing because all your effort was going into that and you were having to write slower. And so it wasn't a very efficient way to write. But if you have a look at the handwriting guidelines in the curriculum, it does recommend that from year 3 onwards, that children start learning how to link letters together and that we start to develop a cursive script with children. So if it's the most efficient way to write, why not start teaching it? So give it a go. So I want to talk a little bit about different supports. Um, you'll, I know that some of you have seen this before, these handwriting books, the sky, what do they call them? Sky, grass, earth supports, where you start, of course, in that green zone, and the tall letters go up to the top, and the ones that fall underneath, like a G, for instance, they go down into the dirt. There has been a bit of research that's come out lately that, and I'd be happy to find it for you if you really want it, that suggests that this adds visual or extraneous cognitive load, basically. So, there are going to be some children out there that find it really, really helpful. And if that's the case, by all means, go for it. But I think blanket for all students, it's probably better not to use those sort of supports. Now, remember this book here, Teaching Handwriting? It is a great book, and in fact, it has just been updated. So when I send you the notes tonight, I'll actually dig out the new one and send it to you. It has got some absolute gold in it. I think the original book was written in 1991, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But have a read of it. It is really, really good. I'll send you the PDF of it and of the updated one that's just come out, I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And that's because handwriting instruction is really undergoing a resurgence in New Zealand. And so they've updated the book. So when we look at the basic script of our handwriting curriculum, that's what it looks like. So junior teachers, that is the script that we're supposed to be teaching. So when we're talking about consistency through a school, that would be a very good starting point. And you'll see there we've got the curly K as well. And that curly K is the way it is because we are moving to a cursive handwriting, and that is the most efficient way to do the K. So, yeah, if you are not familiar with the formation of those letters, that is what we're supposed to be teaching. You can see the V and the W there. You have a choice of whether to make the V with the sharp point at the bottom or whether you make it a bit more of a curved bottom on those, the V and the W. For those of you who have got my cards, my sound pack cards, you'll notice that I have followed this script. And that's really because I want those cards to be a tool also for handwriting instruction. The senior end of the school. You've also got a guide in that handwriting book, and this shows you how the letters link to each other. You'll notice that some of the letters don't link. So familiarize yourself with that and have a look to see which ones do link. Like, for instance, notice how the G and the J, we don't, flick it round. So we want to discourage children from doing that. Obviously, I know particularly with girls, isn't it? They love doing those curly little bits on it. And hey, if the handwriting's looking neat and it's looking and it's legible and it's efficient writing, by all means go for it. But initially, of course, we want to teach that this is the way we link those letters. Now, if you are wanting some computer fonts, I've got some written there. These are fonts that you can download, which if you're making worksheets, etc., or handwriting resources, they're the ones to download. You'll notice Jarman, it's not exactly our cursive style, but it's one of the closest ones to it. So it might be useful for you, but yeah, the Kiwi School handwriting font and the Jarman font is what you want to download. Unfortunately, I don't think they work on Google Docs, but I know that there are some out there. Perhaps if you know of any, write them in the chat so other people can see them. Okay, so pencil grip. Let me just check the time. Pencil grip, really, really important. And this is something that I'm becoming very passionate about because as I go around the country observing classes, I am noticing more and more students, particularly some of our senior kids, that are just not holding that pencil correctly. And I think it really comes down to the instruction right at the very beginning. So, junior teachers, please, can you just really focus in on pencil grip? It's going to make life a lot easier for the student, but also for those teachers who are, battling at the senior end. So, pencil grip, really, really important. Some research has come out to say that this isn't the only way to hold a pencil. So yeah, just be aware of that. There are a couple of grips that are efficient. But what we don't want is ones which put strain on the hand. Particularly that hook, uh, because that really puts the pressure on that joint there. So up to about year 5, they say that pencil grip can be modified. Once a child has sort of reached year 5 and onwards, it starts to become very, very difficult, and sometimes it is what it is. But certainly before then, if you can do anything you can to change pencil grip, please do so because it has a lifetime effect on a child. So, use some grips if you need to. You have these sort. There's the ones, of course, those triangle sort of ones, but these are the ones I actually find more helpful, where the finger gets inserted there. And the ones I use with my intervention students who have a poor pencil grip are these ones that you see in the bottom right, where every single finger is placed into either the holder or the bit behind it, and then that bit that sticks out, that's where the other fingers go into. You can, I know I often talk about Temu. You'd think that I was on it all the time. I'm not. But yeah, you can buy absolutely hundreds of them on Temu. They're as cheap as anything. And the reason why I say that is because if I have children who need corrective pencil grip, I put one on several pencils for them to use. And I also give them one to take home so that anytime they're using a pencil, they've got a pencil grip. And that will hopefully correct things. The other thing you can do is if you have like a tissue or a piece of paper, or sometimes I'll use like a little marble, but I fold the bit of paper or tissue up into a little piece like that, and then I put the tissue under those two fingers there, and that then allows those three fingers to be used for the pencil grip. So just by holding something there that allows the pressure to be taken off those fingers, and you've got two less fingers to worry about. So yeah, give that a go with some children. That also works. And just by holding something there, whether it's a marble or sometimes I get them to hold their eraser if it's not too big, as they write. Right, I did see a question go into the chat. Oh, wonderful. Yes, great. Thank you, Joe. There's another cursive font if somebody's interested. Keely, does it have to be a pencil or can it be a pen? Um, Under year 3, use a pencil. It's for that auditory link. Not only that, when they are writing and need some, particularly when they're first learning how to use phoneme fingers and writing down sounds, if a sound is written down incorrectly, it's better to use an eraser to rub that out, to rewrite that. That's so that we're not getting really messy in our book. And it's not about the untidiness of the book. It's about when I go and ask the child to reread their words, if there have been crossed out bits and bits inserted, etc., etc., that becomes very hard for the child to read the words. So yeah, I always recommend if you see an error or if a child makes an error, by all means, rub it out. Initially, as a teacher, I hold on to the rubber because you know what kids are like with the erasers. But once they can show that they can use it sensibly, then absolutely have erasers on the table. Right. Let's have a look. All right. So yeah, another great way to work on formation. This would be a really good independent activity that kids are with chalk and a blackboard, you'll see there on the right, sorry, on the left, a very small stubby bit of chalk. That is the most ideal for working on pencil grip. Um, A, the chalk doesn't break, but B, you have far better control over it. So if you've got a child who is struggling with pencil grip, get them onto chalk and a blackboard, and there's only one way you can hold a little stubby bit of chalk, and that is with the correct pencil grip. So that's a little tip for you to get that pencil grip under control. So in that book, the handwriting book, it's got some good advice for left-handed children. So for right-handed children, we turn the book slightly clockwise. But for left-handed children, we've got it more clockwise in a more extreme position. Now, the reason for this is that if as a left-hander, sorry, as a right-handed person, as I write, I drag the pencil across the page. But with a left-handed person, they actually have to push the pencil across the page. And that pushing action, of course, is a lot harder to do than dragging a pencil across. So, what we want to do is allow gravity to help us a little bit. So, by putting it into this position, we are writing almost down the page. And while it's still a pushing action, we're going down. And so, therefore, gravity can help with that. So, what I usually do is if I've got a child who's left-handed and they're learning where to place the book, you can get a bit of electrical tape to form a V on the desk. And every time they go to write on a bit of paper on their book, they just put the corner of that paper or the corner of that book into that V. And then students will know where to put their paper every time. So that's, as they're learning how to, where, the correct position of the paper, etc. So let's have a look at the BD confusion. Um, when a child or before a child comes to school, any objects that they see, it actually doesn't matter what way the object is turned around. So, for instance, that's a cow, or maybe the cow's the other way. Well, it's still a cow. And in fact, even if the cow is lying on its back with its feet in the air, it's still a cow. And so before they come to school, their experience of the world is, that's a phone, that's a phone, that's still a phone. It position doesn't matter. And it's really the first time that they start to learn that position does matter for something is when they come across the letter B, because it's usually the one that they learn first. And so here we've got the B, but if we flip it the other way round, as in the example of the cow, of course, now it turns into something different. And in fact, if we turn it onto its back, we've got something different again. And this is why children confuse the B, the D, and the P, and sometimes to a lesser extent the Q, because position all of a sudden matter. Now, I have tried lots and lots of different methods and intervention to try and fix this. These are some of the things that are out there. You may have seen some of these. Here on the left, we've got the whole bed situation. Have you seen people do this where they make a bed? And, this is the B and this is the D. But, well, hang on. Can I also do that? And, it's, well, what does this one represent? Just that side of the bed, but I don't actually know what that letter is. Okay, so there can be confusion there. I've seen the bat and the ball before, but I've also seen children draw the ball on the other side of the bat, and same with the doorknob. And you've got the bat and the donut. I don't know what poor Deb is doing on that diagram there. She doesn't look too well, does she? Um, but again, just because it's formed like that doesn't tell me what those letters are. And the B for the belly and the D for the diaper. Well, first of all, we don't call it a diaper. In New Zealand, we don't actually really call it a belly either. So none of those are particularly useful. What I find the best to change the BD confusion is link it to the mouth position for the handwriting. So this is the poster I have up on my wall. You might recognise that mouth. And so I link it to the formation of my mouth. So when I'm teaching the letter B and the formation of the letter B, you'll see that my mouth, when I make a B sound, my mouth makes a straight line across. B. And so that straight line is what we start our letter with. And so we start with a straight line first, and then we go around. Likewise with the D, when I'm saying a D sound, it makes a round shape with my mouth, or a rounded shape. And so we start with the round shape. And if you link the mouth position in with the formation and the handwriting of those letters, it sticks so much better than all the other ones that I found. And then, of course, it has the flow-on effect to reading, because particularly like with the B, if a child comes to a word and it's got a B in it, I will say to them, what does it start with? And they say, oh, it's got the straight line first. So I say, right, put your mouth into a straight line. And then I say, now make a sound. And the only thing that can come out of their mouth is B. They can't say D. So after doing that many years of intervention, it's been the thing that I have found the most effective for those B and D confusions. So when you teach the handwriting of those two sounds, link it to your mouth shape. Right. Just keeping an eye on the time, 25 minutes to go. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about dysgraphia, because like dyslexia, dysgraphia is a learning disability that we see in schools. So dyslexia is a disability where the child finds it difficult to process sound. Dysgraphia is a learning disability that affects a person's ability to write. So it can involve difficulties with fine motor skills. So you might see where a child finds it difficult, for instance, to cut paper, and fine motor skills like picking up little beads, etc. It can involve difficulties in language processing and information processing, and all of these impact handwriting, spelling, and composition. Sometimes dysgraphia can co-occur with other learning disabilities like dyslexia. So sometimes you'll see that if a child has dyslexia, they'll also have dysgraphia. But it's not always the case. So just because a child has dyslexia does not mean that they have dysgraphia. And likewise, if a child has dysgraphia, it doesn't mean that they have dyslexia. But often the two can go together, but they're not mutually exclusive. So what does it look like? This is some examples of children with dysgraphia. You'll see that the formation of the letters is quite labored. And like particularly in that first sample, can you see how the H and the K, they're not smooth? Um, and like the what was it, the S there, it's quite angular. In the Z, you'll see that too, there. And even if you look at the C, you've got A, B, C. See how it's written in two parts? It's not just one smooth C. There's kind of a top bit, and then the pencils come off, and then another bit added on. And while this can look like a normal new entrant writing, if this carries on, this child here was a year 4 child who wrote that. So obviously well past where they need to be. And sorry, the other way around. Their writing is not where it needs to be. And so it's really after 2 years of handwriting instruction, if we're not seeing good progress, it could be that it is dysgraphia. And I've just realized I've spelt dysgraphia wrong. I beg your pardon. I'll have to change that afterwards. Again, on the right, here's an older student. You'll see there um, the composition of it in terms of the the spelling is all really well, good and on point, but it's the actual handwriting itself, very, very labored. And in fact, yeah, it's not where they need to be. Another thing that you'll find with dysgraphia is that sometimes, not always, but sometimes they don't write within the lines. And so you'll see this tapering off of the writing. Again, in the new entrant room, of course, you're going to see that all the time. That is not a sign of dysgraphia. It is more that when it starts to go past that 2 year mark, if we start seeing this frequently and no improvement, could be that they have dysgraphia. And in fact, my adult son, when he has dyslexia and he has dysgraphia, when he writes, it still looks like this sample here. And his writing often curves right down as he's writing. So there you can see there are a lot of things that overlap with dyslexia and dysgraphia. And yeah, I'll let you have a little look at that in your notes later on. You may have some children in your class that have some of those markers. So that's why I've put it in there to help you to identify that. Remember, we don't diagnose children. We are teachers. We're not qualified to diagnose things, but it's just good to be aware that, yeah, these things could be at play, and whether a child has a diagnosis or not, that we are aware of some of those signs and some of the things that we can do about it. There are different types of dysgraphia. And again, I'll leave this in your notes that if you suspect a child in your class does have dysgraphia, you can have a little read of this to help you maybe pinpoint some, places to start. So, how do you help a child with dysgraphia? Well, I mean, it goes without saying, doesn't it? But yeah, you just need to be really, really supportive of that child. I know with my own son, with his dysgraphia, he is very, very aware of his writing. and always feels like he's always worried that other people think that his intelligence is of a child because his writing looks, like a child's written it. And in fact, if you look at his signature, it actually looks like a 5-year-old has written that word. It doesn't look like a signature. He just writes his name. But it's about being supportive of that and understanding that. Yeah, there's a quite a lot of shame, I think, sometimes that comes with it and embarrassment. So just speaking with my mum hat on, yeah, just be really supportive and understanding. It's not something that they can help. There's things that we can do to try and improve the handwriting, um, but it's a really, really difficult task. You can try pencil grips. I think that would help with some of that pencil, um, the grip, and which will help the formation, and it may also relieve some pressure on the hand to um, allow them more to be thinking about forming the letters rather than also having to think about the pressure on the paper. Particularly in maths, you can provide large graph paper for completing, maths problems. It's about giving children the support that they can fit numbers into each box. So you know how you get those maths books and it's got those little squares. They're really, really great for children with dysgraphia because they can just put one number in each box. Likewise, those sky, grass, earth supports may be helpful. They may not. They might add too much cognitive load, but I think it's worth giving it a go for some of those children just to give them that support. Also, offer assistance with proofreading. There is nothing more disheartening than writing a story and then actually not being able to read your own writing, or if it's all off the page, etc. So yeah, do help with that proofreading. It's a monumental task when you're having to edit a story and you are finding it difficult to look at the formation and the way those words are formed to try and read that for some children with dysgraphia. So perhaps you could offer assistance with that, and yeah, create editing checklists as well to reduce that cognitive load. Some other ways to help if a child displays dysgraphia, try writing on a slant board. So that's a board which you can sometimes see them and they just lift the workplace up. So it's like having a desk, like what an architect uses, and they have those slanted boards. Or sometimes just using a 3-inch binder, where it just provides that wedge shape that they can rest their book on. Writing on a slanted surface allows the wrist to extend, and the fingers to flex, and for the hand to naturally fall into a better writing position. So for some students, that might be an appropriate accommodation to use. Some other accommodations you can do, give them a little bit of longer time to complete the work. Some children, particularly in the senior end, once you're really writing a whole lot of, or you're expecting children to write a lot more, they may just need to go to some keyboarding work. And for those that have got very profound dysgraphia, you may utilize voice to text technology. So when we're looking about speed, I've given you a handy little chart there. It's worth doing this with your class to see how the speed goes. I usually do the sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, because then, of course, you get all the letters. And just ask the kids in your class as a little assessment. We're going to write that sentence over and over again for 1 minute. And then at the end, you count up how many letters they have written. And this is what we're aiming for. So you've got all the years there and what would be considered a good handwriting speed there. So that might give you a bit of a starting point actually. Have a look to see what your class is achieving and maybe graph some data and really focus in on like if the children need a bit of speed work, maybe incorporate that into your handwriting instruction every day. Um, this was a assessment done with Year 9 boys. Um, done. Some of you might have heard of the Right Lesson. They did this. This was done in New Zealand. Here you've got all the students, of course, on the left there, 17 kids in the class. And so the first assessment was done on the 1st of February, and you can see there all the ones in red were falling under the recommended speed. And then some speed work was done with the children, daily consistent lessons, trying to get to automaticity, working on speed, and then another assessment was done in July, and you can see the improvements there. So it is worth trying to assess that in your class and also focusing in on that speed as well. It's not just about legibility, it's about legibility and speed. And that really links to the first activity we did, didn't we? First sample was nice and quick. Your second sample, of course, was really, really slow. And you felt the frustration. So that's why we want our children to write a little bit quicker. Right, and on that, there is available, I do believe you need to purchase it, but it is a resource in New Zealand. It's called The Right Lesson. They have a whole lot of videos online as well that you can use in your class to model handwriting. So I recommend you checking that out. That would be a really good place to start as well. If anyone else got any other resources that they know of for explicit handwriting instruction, yeah, by all means write them into the chat. Right, we have come to the end, so I'm going to open up the chat. If there are any questions about handwriting, can you pop them into the chat? Donna, our session A slideshow says 8 online sessions of 1 hour each, but you just mentioned 1.5 hours. Yes, what I've done, Donna, is because I know you're all very busy, instead of doing 8 1 hour sessions, I'm doing 6 sessions with you, making, I think 4 of them are an hour and a half, and then the last 2 are an hour. So, yeah, 6. Yeah, so there are only 6 Zoom sessions. So, sorry, on your slideshow for session A, that is incorrect. It is not 8 sessions. We're only doing 6. I've made them slightly longer so that frees up 2 of your evenings. Next one, how do I scan in on the Zoom to show I've been on for this evening? Tonight I will send you the recording of this. All you need to do is open it up and it will immediately pop up within the first 10 seconds or so, and you just scan it and then you can shut down the recording. So that will come on there. Tara. Does the Right Lessons have passages for cursive writing and sentence work for intermediate students? I think it does. I think it does. I know they definitely work on cursive writing, so it'd be worth having a look. David, I have a year ESOL student who writes in a very different traditional style. He needs general literacy support. Would focusing on changing his handwriting would be a good fair option? Um, Depends on the age of the child. Yeah, I've had ESOL students as well, David, particularly those that come from India that have a quite distinctive, like you say, traditional style. It really depends if they are of an age where you can change it. But I think if the legibility is there and the speed is there, I would leave it alone. Um, Usually, what happens at around the year six mark is that children will start to adapt to their own style. And that is completely fine and completely normal. I mean, none of us write the same way, do we? So, but the things to keep in mind is it legible and is it of an appropriate speed? Then leave it. If it's not, then you need to start looking at changing the handwriting. Also, if a child is complaining of a sore hand at any point, or if you notice that the knuckles are really like there's a lot of pressure on the hand, then yeah, do something about it. Yeah, knew it. Year six from India. Yeah, I've come across that quite a few times. Yeah. Does anyone know of a great place to buy small chalkboards for handwriting practice? Good question. I do not know the answer to that, Nicola. Maybe somebody might know. Short of saying Timu. No, I don't think. Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Maybe somebody knows. Um, Linley writes, the right lessons are great across age group. My three boys, school years 3, 9, and 11, have been doing them. Yep. My older children couldn't write fast enough in their exams, and the lessons have helped them. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? We want children to be able to write with speed because it impacts later on into their exams, etc. And not just their exams, life in general. Um, Tara, I used the right lesson to go along with the trigraphs for the code. Great idea. But I have the $9.99 subscription. Is the sentences and passage lessons on a more expensive subscription? You know what? I'm not sure, Tara. I only looked at the right lesson back when it was free, which is a couple of years ago now. I haven't bought the subscription, but maybe somebody who is using it might be able to tell us. Um, Keely writes, I have a year five boy who holds his pen very wrong. I tried him with one of the temp pencil grips and he hates it. Says his hand is sore and his writing is less neat. Without the grip, his writing is very neat. Your thoughts? Um, yeah, it's around that year five, six mark, particularly, yeah, around there that you can no longer change the handwriting very easily. Again, I would, if his writing is very neat, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But what I would be saying to him is about the speed and seeing if his speed is uh, of an appropriate rate. If it's not, I would be talking to him about perhaps the pencil grips may help with speed. But yeah, remember it's got to be the two things. Got to be neat or legible and it's got to have speed. Thanks, Vicky. Yep, thanks for answering Tara's question. Yep, great, fantastic. Oh, that's good. Any other questions around handwriting? Extending the cursive with the Zander Blasser style. You know what? I have not heard of that before, Tara. What I do recommend though is that any um, programs that you use, like whether it's the Right Lesson or Xander Blassister, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, that it follows the New Zealand curriculum, because then you've got consistency throughout the school. So I think it would be a little bit of a worry if only one teacher was using one particular resource and that it wasn't, put out for the rest of the team. So something to think about. What age do you stop whole class skywriting? I stop when they have learnt the whole alphabet. So, with the sound pack, initially when we are looking at the cards, with the handwriting, it's when we are learning the basic alphabet. So, D, duck, D, and the kids all do the skywriting. But once we start getting onto um, digraphs, trigraphs, etc., where we have got more than just one letter, then we don't do the skywriting anymore. So that skywriting typically is really only in the year one, maybe two class. So, yeah, skywriting just for the juniors, and it's about visualizing the letter in front of them and activating that muscle memory. But by year two, that muscle memory is very well developed, and we're just onto writing. Any other questions? Great, Lindy. Yep, we often don't talk about dysgraphia, do we? So I think it's quite important to be aware of what it looks like, and some of the things that you can do to help that. Um, Wonderful. Good. All right. I think on that note, look at that. It's exactly 8:30. I'm going to leave you there. I will send out the recording to you. I'll send out the handwriting document. Um, and I'll also send a PDF of the PowerPoint so that you've got the notes there. So thank you, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I will see you next week, where we start to delve in. I think we're doing syntax next week. I'd have to double check, or maybe it's questions. I'll have to have a look. But yeah, wonderful. We will see you all next week.